The rest of us have complained about the weather, but the scientist in Steve has kind of enjoyed this.
Oh, has he ever enjoyed this?
A little too much, maybe. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. But now the payoff.
Yeah, really. You know, it was fascinating. Really fascinating. I learned something today. Now, this next story is going to appeal naturally to me, of course, but the general science of this is really amazing. You know, we hit the 90-degree mark today, right? So that's 17 in a row. Well, 9 News reporter Scott Wegener set out on a mission to discover where exactly that information was recorded back in 1901. Now, what he found connects Cincinnati to the birth of modern weather forecasting.
Tomorrow, the old record of 17 consecutive days above 90 degrees set in 1901 may be toast. The Weather Service says we tied the record at 1:52 this afternoon, officially recorded at the Cincinnati airport. But how about in 1901? The airport wouldn't be built for another 46 years. The U.S. Weather Service, then called the Weather Bureau, had been started with an astronomer from the Queen City, Cleveland Abbey.
He was able to get information from cities in the west and which direction the wind's moving, and actually started to predict weather for longer periods of time.
The original observatory where weather was collected was in Mount Adams, but that was converted into a monastery in the 1870s. The U.S. Weather Service suggested that record high temperature might have been recorded here at what used to be the Abbey Meteorological Observatory in Clifton. It's now home to the Gunza family. 19-year-old Mark Gunza used to come to the roof to study.
It's kind of cool to realize that I was reading a book at the same place where people were reading the weather like 100 years ago.
But records show Mark's home wasn't built until 1915.
If we're looking at 1901, more than likely this would be the place where we'd be recording all that data.
The Cincinnati Observatory did collect weather data then, and Abbey was their second director. Dan Regas says back then he would have preferred astronomy duties to dealing with the heat.
Boy, I would like to be an astronomer, wake up late at night and when it's a little cooler.
Scott Wegener, 9 News.
How about that, huh?
Very interesting.
How about that? Now, I got to tell you something. Around the weather shop, we call him the weatherman. Let me tell you a couple of facts about Cleveland Abbey, shall we? Because this guy's really impressive. If you look at his bio, and I got a little shot here for you that I'll show you. The National Weather Service themselves actually called this man really kind of, and let me read it specifically, magnificent in scope and noble in purpose. Because specifically what he said was, with the telegraphs around, we could actually do, and it seems novel, the idea of daily forecasts. And then he went on to say, well, couldn't we warn people if we had flooding or other problems way back in the 1800s? I mean, a really amazing man who was way ahead of his time. So really great.
So in a sense, he's responsible for the fact that Popo will only get 1 minute and 45 seconds for sports tonight.
That might be the case. And I know John joins us all in saying it's well worth it.